والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله. My dearest brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. My name is Arnaud Mafille. I'm the Executive Director of Caged Prisoners. Inshallah, I'd like to welcome you all to this event in order to, inshallah, raise some awareness about the current situation in Morocco. We're hosting this event with a new organization that, inshallah, you will come to become very familiar with in the near future. It's called Justice Morocco. But to give you a bit of background first, we've got some time just before the Asr Salah begins, so inshallah just a very quick introduction. On the 16th of March 2003, the Casablanca bombings took place. And the result of those bombings were effectively mass detentions, disappearances, torture, abuse, and killings that went into their thousands. Unfortunately, with Morocco, as many of you in this crowd are fully aware, the story of abuse doesn't begin with Casablanca though. It's a story that's been going on for decades, ever since the colonial era. And unfortunately, the policies of that time have really found their way into the present day. So we've seen, even before the Casablanca bombings, that a number of detainees were being abused just because of their religion. We have people with us here today who are living testaments to the abuse that's taken place, who can describe some of the brutal torture that currently is taking place to detainees being held in Morocco, in prisons such as Tamara, Saleh, Kenneth. All of these places, they have now become very, very, very well known in the annals of torture history. Today though is a stand really. This is what we want it to be. We want it to be a milestone, inshallah, in the history of Morocco. Because this isn't about changing the regime in Morocco. This isn't about bringing about some massive coup. Today is about effectively all of us recognizing that there is a fundamental problem in the not just the Muslim world, but specifically in Morocco, which is that there is no justice. There is no justice for the person who comes before the law. And that's why today our aim is to launch this new organization, Justice Morocco, an organization that inshallah will empower Moroccans and the wider Muslim community to take on these issues. When we talk about lack of due process, we talk about torture, we talk about arbitrary detention, we talk about enforced disappearances, murders. We want to be thinking that, alhamdulillah, we finally have an organization that's sole purpose is to make sure that these policies end, that the litany of abuses that are currently taking place in these Moroccan prisoners comes to an end. And tonight, we should think about all of the people that are currently being held without charge, without trial, all the people who are still missing until this very day. We should put them at the forefront of our mind as we think about what 9 years means to them. When I think about 9 years for myself, it means a lot in terms of my own personal life, in terms of my achievements. 9 years for some of these people, it means that their life stopped. Their life stopped for their families as well. And inshallah, from today, Justice Morocco will be making sure that all of that comes to an end. Our first speaker is a researcher for Caged Prisoners. His name is Arnaud Mafille, and he's been researching specifically around the issues relating to some of the cases that are going on in Morocco right now. So if I could ask Arnaud to come up, please, and just speak for a short while before the Asr Salah begins.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. SubhanAllah, when I started to research into the situation in Morocco, I thought I'm going to look into the past 10 years. Actually, as Prophet Hassan said, I realized that the abuse had been going on for more than 10 years. It's been 100 years actually. I looked at the situation during the French and Spanish colonization, and I realized that people were abused in the very same way. Then I realized that after the colonization came the independence. With independence came hope, but again, after hope came oppression. For 40 years, the Moroccan lived under what they call the years of peace, meaning for 40 years anybody who was opposing the regime, anybody who was only perceived as opposing the regime might disappear, be tortured, imprisoned. That's been going on for 40 years. And again, when King Hassan II passed away, many hopes came up, and people were saying, okay, Mohammed VI is a young king, he's different, and actually there are some sign of changes, because just like in South Africa after the apartheid, the king started the Truth Commission to investigate into the abuse that had been going on for 40 years. So from 56 to 99. But subhanAllah, at the very same time, we now know that the Moroccan regime was colluding with the CIA and the FBI and the US authorities to torture and detain the people who were picked up after the beginning of the war on terror. So we now know that Abu Zubaydah was detained in Morocco. We know that Ibn Sheikh Khalid was detained in Morocco. And we know that Bin Mohammed was detained in Morocco. Now the account of Bin Mohammed is not challenged anymore. The US have admitted, a judge has admitted that the government doesn't challenge his account. The British has admitted that he was detained in Morocco. And I'm sure that most of you know the case of Bin Mohammed, just to give you a bit of background. He was picked up in Pakistan in 2002, away from any battlefield, and then he was put under this transition program designed by the CIA. So he was basically flown from one country to another to be tortured. And he spent 18 months in Morocco. There was beaten up, hanged by his wrist, sleep deprived, food deprived, you name it. And at the peak of his torture, razor blade was taken to his chest and to his genitals. That's the kind of things that, as you know, are taking place in Morocco. Now, something that is interesting as well is in the war on terror, you find that it's not only the people who are suspected that are victims, but sometimes it's their families as well. And just like Libyan Abdul Hakim Belhaj was rendered with his family, his wife, you find that somebody who is really well known in Morocco is Umadan. Umadan was the wife of Abdul Karim Mishati. And she was told that they have nothing against her. Nevertheless, she was picked up in Saudi, and then she was sent to Morocco and she had life again with a 10-year-old son. It's called Ilyas. Now for months, saying they were sleep deprived, tortured, kept in solitary confinement, to the extent that this son, 10-year-old son, Ilyas, tried to commit suicide. Now nobody knew where they were for all this time. And it's only at that point that she was released with her son. Now, interestingly enough, the son was of French nationality. And it's interesting to see the role of the Europeans in those cases very often. And for example, you find that a case in France against 8 brothers was started because of the testimony of Arnaud Mafille. Maybe some of you will know him under his name, Sheikh Abu Mu'ad. Now, Abu Mu'ad was kidnapped in Mauritania, and again was rendered with his wife, kept in secret detention for months, and of course he was coerced into testimonies or confessions. And strangely enough, you find that those confessions are knowingly obtained under torture and were used in France to imprison brothers there. So obviously that's against any form of international law or even human decency. Now, another case is the case of Mohamed Hajib. Now, Mohamed Hajib became a figure in Morocco when he climbed over the walls of a Rabat prison and started to shout against the abuse that brothers were going through. Now, Salim is a German citizen, and to cut a long story short, he explained in the video how the German authorities were complicit of his arbitrary detention and torture. He explained how he was strongly advised to travel to Morocco while he was in detention. He explained how the German authorities called his mother to make sure that he was indeed arrested. Now, I don't have much time left, but after the Casablanca bombings, there are thousands of people who were picked up. Obviously, there's some names that we know because maybe the US were involved or the European states were involved. But there's thousands of Moroccans whom we don't know. I mean, when I was in France on a fact-finding trip, somebody told me that, our relative was picked up in Morocco 10 years ago, but we don't know where he is. We don't know what happened to him. And what we believe is that he was suffering from asthma. What we believe is that he was mistreated and he was killed in detention. And just to conclude, inshallah, I just want to say that the Casablanca bombings were really like the Moroccan 9/11. Just like the Americans adopted new laws after 9/11, Morocco adopted a new anti-terror law after the Casablanca bombings. Just like the Americans went all over the world to pick up people, the Moroccan intelligence went all over the countries to the poorest neighborhoods to pick up thousands of people. It's difficult to find a reliable figure, but it said that between 2,000 people and 11,000 people were arrested. Now, most of those people, they remain unknown. And just to mention something that came up yesterday, it was announced that a brother was detained in Morocco for apparently a year, passed away in his cell. Now, nobody knows that, but he went on a hunger strike for 70 days and he starved to death. So he felt that he had no option but to take his life away to protest against the treatment he was going through. What I want to say is that in Palestine, brothers and sisters, they've started a very similar process. They're on a hunger strike and they're ready to take their own life away. Now, rightly so, they've received a wide support. Now, the brothers in Morocco, they've been on a hunger strike for 40 days, and it's almost a month for most of the people. Most of the people, they won't even know that this brother stopped eating for 70 days and passed away because of that. So, inshallah ta'ala, our job and our responsibility is to make sure that the name, the cause, and the treatment and the situation of those people are known. And inshallah, our responsibility is to make sure that this injustice comes to an end, inshallah. So, سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.
جزاكم الله خير, brother Anwar.